Before getting started with today's episode, I'd like to thank the sponsors behind Web3 Deep Dive. Thank you to FreedomGPT. FreedomGPT is the app store for artificial intelligence that allows anyone to access any AI model. Finally, thanks to JTX Media for the video and audio production behind this podcast, based out of Austin, Texas. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Web3 Deep Dive Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Wolfson. I'm so excited for today's interview. Today I'm actually speaking with two really amazing people that I've known for quite a while, Bill Tai and Amanda Terry. So let's get to the interview. Hi Bill, hi Amanda.
Hey Rachel.
Hey Rachel, thanks for having us.
Of course, yeah, no, thank you for being here in beautiful Austin, Texas. Bill, we'll start with you. Could you maybe tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yes, so I am a venture capitalist by trade. I started off as a computer chip designer and have been doing venture funding since 1991. So I'm kind of old in this space, but did move over into the crypto space about 14 years ago.
Great. And Amanda, what about you?
Sure, yeah, I'm co-founder and chief operating officer of Metagood. Metagood is the company behind NFT collection OnChainMonkey. We were the first 10,000 inscribed on Bitcoin, and we're working on a lot of Bitcoin infrastructure. I'm also a managing partner of Acti Ventures, which is an early stage fund, which I run with Bill.
Wow, okay. So let's start off by talking a little bit about the VC space and Web3. Bill, maybe you can share your thoughts on that and maybe just companies that you're interested, that are interesting to you.
Yeah, so I given that I've been funding companies for 30 years now, I still do a lot that's non-crypto, but the digital asset space has become part of the ecosystem I do work in. I was relatively early in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and I'd say my favorite companies are still the ones that I have been working with. The original entry point for me was paying for the ASIC that became Bitfury, and that has led to a whole slew of other things. I did have, I don't know if I call it the misfortune, but I had the misfortune of passing on funding Ethereum in 2014 because I thought the work we were doing at Bitfury would fill a lot of the space that Ethereum ended up taking. But I did then go on to help provide early funding for the thing. Once I knew Ethereum was going to work, I dove into that sector and funded Dapper Labs and Power Ledger and an early project with Mike Novogratz and Joe Lubin called Fluidity that introduced the first peer-to-peer DEX.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was called AirSwap, if you remember that.
Actually, I vaguely remember because I think that's when I think I have an AirSwap shirt.
Yes?
Yeah, I do.
It was a very hot company, and that engineering team, the company got bought by Joe and crew, and a lot of the products you see out of that organization come from the team that we built inside of Fluidity /product AirSwap that is now at Consensus.
Interesting.
Yeah, and since then, there's a wonderful project that you helped us launch in a way. Right at the time I was funding Dapper Labs, the company was really just known for CryptoKitties. And I was about to fund them, and I was also running an ocean conservation gala. And I wanted them to do something more than just spinning digital cats around in an exchange. So I asked them if they could, for me, create a digital asset that we could sell to provide a real world outcome. And they created for this ocean gala a cat with a turtle shell called Hanu Kitty. We managed to auction that off and actually gave the money to Captain Paul Watson. And you helped us launch that with an article in Forbes. I can't remember if that was 2017.
It might have been. It was a while ago. It was a really good article, and it was on Forbes. Mm-hmm. I remember thinking how cute the images were.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that actually was one of the things I've always wanted was real world outcome with some good like good social, good environmental something. And so that was a proof point for me that we could actually use a digital asset to fund something where Captain Paul parked his ship off the turtle nesting area of Antigua and had people walk the beaches 24/7 for months to make sure that all the little baby turtles got off into the water and the big ones didn't get eaten. And that idea was basically parked in the back of my head for 4 years. And we decided to take it and try to make it a little bit more replicable. And that was what was the genesis of the creation of Metagood, the kind of genesis block of all good, and what ultimately became the OnChainMonkey collection.
Okay, cool. So this is a great pausing point because Amanda, you can tell us a little bit about Metagood and OnChainMonkey.
Yeah, so obviously co-founded, Bill is our chairman, and my CEO is Danny Yang. He founded the Stanford Bitcoin meetup in 2013. He created MyCoin, which is the largest cryptocurrency exchange operating in Taiwan. So think like the Coinbase of Taiwan, been operating for a decade. And Blockseer, which government agencies use for blockchain analytics. He sold that in 2018. So he's a very kind of OG, genius person in the space. And Bill thankfully connected us, and we launched OnChainMonkeys actually first in September 9th, 2021. It was the first 10,000 collection done in a single Ethereum transaction. So all on chain. They were SVG files before on-chain was a thing. And then when the Ordinals protocol launched just a little over a year ago, we took those monkeys and we inscribed them onto Bitcoin. So it's the first 10,000 collection also inscribed on Bitcoin. And we've done a number of technical innovations from pioneering the use of parent-child provenance and recursion, which are now basically industry standards for ordinals. Danny also created a bunch of code libraries that other artists are using to put their works on Bitcoin. We launched an ordinals marketplace, kind of a curated experience for high-end digital art. So we recently launched Patrick Amadon on there, and we are going to be launching Alexis André, who did friendship bracelets with Snowfro. His collection is called The Frontline, and that will be coming out in the next month.
Oh, cool. And that will be also on the Bitcoin?
His first 10,000 collection on Bitcoin.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
FreedomGPT is an app store for AI. FreedomGPT is most commonly known for its censor-free AI model called Liberty that answers literally any prompt you ask with an unbiased response. Unlike other AIs where controversial topics are off limits, FreedomGPT embraces the concept that you should be able to ask AI anything. Equally important, FreedomGPT has the option to be run locally on your computer so your data remains 100% private and secure. Check out FreedomGPT's over 80 AI models today. Let's talk a little bit about Bitcoin, because this is interesting, and I was also speaking with Munib from Stacks before you guys arrived. What are your thoughts about building on the Bitcoin blockchain? Bill, do you want to?
I love that concept. So, obviously having put Bitfury in play, and now parts of Bitfury have been spun off to create other companies. So if you're familiar with HUT8 Mining,
I am, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still chairman of the board of HUT8, and I think we now have access to 1.3 gigawatts of electricity around the world in different places. And there was another unit of Bitfury that was spun out, and is now a public company called Cypher Mining. I'd say the two together are worth a few $1 billion. So they're not insignificant companies, and they have a lot of hash power. It was really interesting to see last fall that there was a point at which the economic reward per block in Bitcoin from the fees to generate assets written to the Bitcoin blockchain exceeded the actual block reward. And one of the questions that I had at the very beginning of the Bitcoin movement was, what happens to all that mining infrastructure that people paid, $100 billion for probably or more when the block rewards run out? Mm-hmm. And that's a ways away. But I always had faith that eventually the distributed database architecture of what is the Bitcoin blockchain would find utility in a bunch of other things, and that there would be an economic value to that, so that by definition there would be a continuing effort to maintain it. And I feel that's been proven. The transaction levels go up and down, but with ordinals and Taproot, ordinals, Lightning Network, all these things that are allowing other things to be built on top, and we need stacks, of course. I think it's poised for a great future.
Definitely. I mean, we're all seeing it basically happen now. I mean, we're seeing all these Bitcoin layer 2s emerge. I guess Bitcoin has matured to the point where people know that they can build on it, and we know that we need layer 2s in order to do that, because obviously we saw with runes the high gas fees that were crazy. Amanda, what are your thoughts on like Bitcoin layer 2s?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was catching up with my co-founder last night, because he follows everything, and he was kind of saying that in some ways it's still very early. Like, I mean, obviously they're stacked, but there's not a lot of development there yet. So I think there is a lot of room probably for L2s to launch on Bitcoin, for sure, to make it easier to create kind of more value on Bitcoin than just being a store of value. And there'll be different L2s developed for different purposes, potentially.
And I don't know if it will play out in the same way that the microcomputer industry did. But one representative example, and again, I don't know if it'll follow this path or not, but everybody will remember Microsoft DOS. And then BASIC, some very, very crude, looking back, they were great at the time, but looking back compared to higher level languages, very crude, difficult to program with, very laborious because you had to sometimes go down into ones and zeros. And so Bitcoin is a little bit like that. And then next to the PC with Microsoft DOS came Apple. And they had a more complete vertical package that was focused on usability. Ease of use meant everything. And Apple took off and was king for a bit. But the economic power of the horizontal layers in a very open community that became hundreds of white box makers, and then this little layer of DOS, and then the later Windows and all the applications that effectively copied everything that got pioneered in Apple. That market became so big that Apple at one point was relegated to 6% market share, with 94% being PC. And so it wouldn't surprise me someday if something like that happens, because the massive infrastructure inside Bitcoin is very robust. Ethereum and others have taken the user interface and improved it, but pretty much every function that exists in those ecosystems is going to make its way to the Bitcoin ecosystem with the ability to go horizontally big scale, and therefore I think more efficiency and lower cost. So, but that wave in the microcomputer business was a 30-year thing, so I think who knows what it'll be in this case, but I think it's possible.
Yeah, I was going to ask predictions as to when that may happen, because right now we're just seeing it start.
It's just the beginning right now. Sure.
Right.
Yeah, and actually, it's interesting, Microsoft with its power in DOS and BASIC and all that, after DOS was kind of its main revenue stream, they made the majority of their revenue doing applications for the Mac, which then they copied over and brought into their own ecosystem. And there were other companies like the pioneering companies in word processing that wasn't Microsoft Word, it was WordPerfect. And then there was the spreadsheet, Lotus 123, that they copied with Excel. So I think eventually everything will find its function in these vertical markets, and then their real critical mass in the wider, lower cost, more horizontal markets. So it could all happen.
Right, definitely. Amanda, any thoughts on that you want to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think definitely Bill has a longer term view in the space as kind of being OG, but yeah, I mean, I do think generally it's like ordinals, runes, all of this, Bitcoin L2 has kind of brought a lot of builders back to Bitcoin, and it's just really exciting.
So Bill, I also wanted to ask you about the VC space. When I know we talked a little bit about this before, but was there ever a lack of interest from VCs in funding Web3 companies, and are we starting to see more of an interest now that like the prices of Bitcoin and Ethereum are up?
I feel like the venture industry has now kind of bifurcated into two separate, and they're not completely separate, but somewhat overlapping ecosystems, where I think Web3 is an interesting thing because it's dealing with value exchange natively, right? And a lot of the projects are able, I wouldn't call it self-funding, but they're able to raise capital defined not necessarily as US dollars in other ways. than taking VC dollars. So I think that presents a dilemma for a US dollar denominated regular old tech venture fund, because when they're looking at a Web3 target that may have alternatives to issue assets and doesn't need the venture person, everything looks overpriced to the traditional venture folk. And the ability for them to just raise their own money, many of them do, right? So I think a lot of the traditional venture people are just kind of left out in the cold in that, and they don't understand it, So, but then there are some people that have gravitated towards being able to fuel those really early before that, and receive their gains in non-US dollar assets, which then they also have to deal with. So it takes a different legal structure. It takes a different exit strategy. It's kind of a different game. Mm-hmm. So I think both exist in parallel.
Yeah. I also think we're seeing more payments being made in stable coins.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think stable coins they're a great use case. I mean, it's instant. There's, the fees aren't as high. So yeah, stable coins are great. Amanda, let's talk a little bit about On-Chain Monkeys. What's next for the project?
Yeah, I mentioned briefly earlier, but we're really excited to bring Alexis André to Bitcoin.
Who is he?
Alexis, he's a French artist.
Okay.
Well-known generative artist. Probably his most well-known collection he did with Snowfro art blocks, which was friendship bracelets.
Okay.
And now he's doing a 10,000 collection with us called The Frontline. So there is no good without bad. It's just where you draw the front line, and it's actually going to use some of the traits of our OCM Genesis monkeys. So when you mint, you can choose to make a front line with the traits of your monkey, or you can do kind of like a random mint if you just want to see what comes from that. And we're really excited. I mean, I spoke with them at NFT Paris. It was like the first Ordinals panel. We spoke at the Bright Moments event. It was the first time they've ever brought Ordinals to their largely live ETH minting community. And Danny and I will be at Bitcoin Nashville in July with some more fun stuff to share as well. So we're just really excited about the mint, and yeah.
Cool. And if our listeners want to get involved, how would they do that?
Yeah, I mean, best is Twitter to follow us at OnChainMonkey. Hop in our Discord. People are very friendly, and we'll answer any questions people have about Ordinals or the Monkeyverse. And then my personal Twitter is at Amanda Terry, TRY, obviously at KiteVC, and Danny, our co-founder, is at HUUEP, which is Danny upside down.
Cool. Okay. Before we end the interview, I know we're short on time. Bill, I love your watch. Can you explain that?
Yes. Okay.
I've been looking at that, and for our listeners who can see your watch, that's an awesome
This is very fun. This is an ARM-based CPU in a kit.
Okay.
And you build your own smartwatch. It has a USB-C port, and you can download programs and develop games and do all kinds of stuff. It's $110. On just find it online, and it's called Clockstar. And if you want to do a series of many things like this, you can subscribe to something called circuitmess.com. And every 3 months you'll get a project kit. You can build your own kind of Amazon Alexa clone. You can build a robotic arm. You can build a watch for $110. And this was built for me by an 11-year-old. And it was
amazing.
Too big for his wrist. So I get to wear it.
Cool. Wait, so you can get one of those on Amazon?
On Amazon,
Okay,
as
that's
Clockstar.com, Clockstar.com, or through Amazon, or through Circuit Mess as part of a subscription to get something every 3 months to build.
Awesome.
Love it.
Cool. Well, I know we're out of time. Maybe we can do a follow-up that's a little bit longer. You guys have been great, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank the sponsors behind Web3 Deep Dive. You can click the links in the show notes to learn more about each of the Web3 initiatives from these sponsors. Finally, thanks to the listeners for tuning in. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and share. I'll see you guys next time.